U.S. auto war. Trump's 25% tariff threat could break the economy in a bold and controversial move. President Donald Trump has reignited one of the most heated battlegrounds in global trade, the automotive sector. This time, his target is not China, Mexico, or but Japan. The White House is now actively considering a 25% tariff on all Japanese-built vehicles and key components imported into the United States, invoking the rarely used Section 232 of the Trade Expansion Act, clause historically reserved for protecting national security. This proposal isn't just about cars. It's about the very framework of a decades-long industrial alliance between two of the world's largest economies. If implemented, this tariff could unravel the tightly woven U.S.-Japan automotive ecosystem that supports hundreds of thousands of jobs, fuels billions in tax revenues, and underpins the economic health of dozens of U.S. cities and regions. Japanese cars. American towns. Trump's criticism is blunt. We sell Japan no cars. They flood us with millions. He argues that this one-sided trade dynamic is hurting American workers. But the reality is far more complex and far more dangerous. Japanese automakers are not outsiders operating on American soil. They're embedded. Toyota, Honda, Nissan, Subaru, Mazda, and Mitsubishi collectively employ more than 500,000 people across the United States. They've built sprawling campuses, training centers, and R&D labs in places like Georgetown, Kentucky, Marysville, Ohio, Huntsville, Alabama, and Lafayette, Indiana. These companies aren't just assembling cars, they're powering steel mills, fueling railroads, funding school systems, and shaping technical education programs. In fact, 7 Japanese carmakers alone contribute over $170 billion annually to the U.S. economy. Their presence isn't just substantial, it's foundational. Section 232, a national security lever or economic gamble. At the heart of the tariff threat is Section 232, a Cold War-era provision that allows the president to impose trade restrictions if imports are deemed a threat to national security. While previously applied to strategic metals like steel and aluminum, using it against a key ally's automotive sector represents a seismic policy shift. If the White House follows through, a 25% tariff would be slapped on both fully assembled vehicles and thousands of critical car parts imported into the U.S. engines, transmissions, electric battery modules, advanced sensors, infotainment systems, and more. These are the lifeblood of modern vehicle production, and Japan is among the top global suppliers. This isn't just about showroom sticker prices. The ripple effects would spread across every link of the supply chain: seat manufacturers in Ohio, BATTERY plants in Tennessee, software developers in Nevada, rail operators in Illinois. This is not an isolated tax policy. It is a full-spectrum economic gamble by Washington. The stakes? More than 436,000 American jobs, $31 billion in annual tax revenue, and a production framework 3 decades in the making. A shock to the system in 2023 alone. Japanese automakers accounted for 43% of all passenger and light commercial vehicles sold in the U.S. over 6.3 million units. Toyota built 1.25 million cars in Texas, Kentucky, and Mississippi. Honda produced 970,000 vehicles in Alabama and Ohio. Nissan followed with 770,000 units, while Subaru added 221,000 from its Indiana plant. A joint Mazda-Toyota facility in Alabama produced 150,000 vehicles. Even Mitsubishi, though it ceased production in Illinois in 2016, still delivers 75,000 units annually through its global network. Behind those numbers is a highly localized economic footprint. These factories employ 96,000 people directly on production lines. Add 227,000 supply chain jobs and another 113,000 induced jobs, everything from restaurants to real estate, and the total economic reach balloons. And it's not just blue-collar workers. Over 17,000 professionals work in finance, leasing, and credit operations through firms like Toyota, Financial Services, and Honda Finance Corporation. The total tax contribution of this ecosystem? Over $31 billion a year. That money funds public education in Kentucky, infrastructure in Mississippi, emergency services in Ohio, and technical colleges in Alabama. The threat of disruption isn't theoretical. It's existential. Tariffs versus margins. An auto industry on the brink. Japanese automakers operating in the U.S. already face razor-thin profit margins. Toyota's North American operations run at 7.1%. Honda's are at 5.6%. Nissan barely reaches 4.3%. Subaru, the most efficient of the group, maintains an 8.8% margin. A 25% tariff would cut directly into those margins, erasing profit or even creating operational losses. Worse, it would arrive at a time when automakers are already under pressure from rising material costs, hybrid technology expenses, and electrification mandates. Many Japanese hybrid systems already subsidized internally to remain competitive use. Parts still sourced from Japan or Thailand. Inverters, battery modules, drive control units, cooling systems. These would all be subject to the new tariff, layering costs on top of costs. The options facing automakers aren't great. They can absorb the cost to stay price competitive, which slashes profits, raise prices, which could collapse sales, freeze new investments, halting innovation and expansion, scale back U.S. operations, cutting jobs and destabilizing local economies. Right now, all four options are being modeled in Tokyo and Nagoya. The real cost of backshoring. One scenario gaining traction in Japanese boardrooms is backshoring, shifting production back to Japan or Southeast Asia. What was once considered politically or logistically unfeasible is now being studied seriously. The reason? Economic survival. Modeling by the Bureau of Economic Analysis shows that even a partial withdrawal of Japanese automakers could increase regional unemployment by 2.6 percentage points in Mississippi and 1.8 points in Alabama. Kentucky could see GDP losses of over $4.2 billion annually. Beyond jobs, the federal budget would feel the blow. According to the Congressional Budget Office, lost tax revenue from corporate income, payroll taxes, dealer fees, and infrastructure leases could total $18 billion in 2026, $26 billion in 2027, over $58 billion by 2028. That's not counting losses to local governments or educational grants funded through industrial partnerships. The bond market wild card. The impact isn't limited to factories and freight. It could ripple into Wall Street, specifically the $1 trillion